All right, good morning, everybody. Pastor JJ here, and it's Holy Week, and I would like to bring you some thoughts on Wednesday and the accounts that we are reading through in our devotions. If you haven't jumped on graceplace.org and looked at past sermons and downloaded that piece, you can do that now, and you can follow along as we are working through Jesus moving to the cross. Today, we're going to pick up in the Gospel of Mark, and I just have a couple of thoughts and things to be thinking about here. Um, you see, these Gospel accounts are eyewitness personal accounts, and there are four great ones. And today, we're going to be picking up on the Jesus being anointed with perfume. And then, in contradiction to that, not only are we lifting up who Jesus is, we're seeing how humanity jumps in the way, and Judas now goes and betrays Jesus. Chapter 14, verse 1, if you want to read along. Now, the Passover, the festival of unleavened bread, were only 2 days away, and the chief priests and the teachers of the law were looking for some sly way to arrest Jesus and kill him. But not during the festival, they said, or the people may riot. While he was in Bethany, reclining at the table of the home of Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages, and the money given to the poor," and they rebuked her harshly. "Leave her alone," Jesus said. "Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor will always be with you, and you can help them at any time you want. But you will not always have me. She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted to hear this and promised to give him money. So he watched for an opportunity to hand him over. Here are my observations and my thoughts for today. As Pastor Kelly was teaching us yesterday, Jesus was taking this paradigm of what we value and shifting it. He was saying that, hey, don't put your value in this world, put your value in me, and how much more I am worth than the things of this world. And still here in this story on this Wednesday in Holy Week, the disciples are struggling. You see, they are hanging out at Mary's house. In John chapter 12, it says that they were at Simon the leper. So Mary and Lazarus and Martha and everyone was there. As they were resting, potentially getting ready for this festival, Mary comes and breaks this jar of perfume and anoints Jesus and rubs it on his head. You see, the disciples are probably in the same mindset that we might be in, that going, "Oh my goodness, how can you take that jar of perfume and waste it like that? We could have used that to sell, we could have sold it, and we could have fed the poor." You see, I get that. That makes sense to me. They're valuing this jar of perfume higher than the act of what was happening. They had, I believe, good intentions. They wanted to feed the poor because here Jesus is teaching, take care of other people. But in this, we learn that Jesus is saying, hey, wait. Remember what I've told you. There aren't too many other commands greater than taking care of other people. But through his words and his comments back to them, he is showing us that his presence and who he is, loving God first, the deity of who he is, his very nature being God, is way more important than feeding the poor. And as I read this, and I've been thinking about this week, I realized that sometimes we get stuck in valuing our life and our status and who we are connected to and how much money we make over the value of giving our life over to God. Everything in our life, giving it to God. You see, it goes on. The story goes on and talks about how Judas is still stuck in that mindset. He is still valuing the world over who Jesus is, even though he spent a ton of time with him. I know that sometimes happens with us. And so we have to re-gear and rethink and reshift the way that our momentum is going. And maybe today you just need to have that shift in mindset. Maybe you've been valuing all the things of the world. And you know what? And in some ways, I think we're all doing this. As we sit at home and during this quarantine, the value of what we thought was important out there is beginning to have, I guess, a change and an effect on us mentally. And so, my prayer for you today is to know that you are not who the world says you are who God says you are. And if you need to rethink what you value, today is a great day to do that. Because Jesus is one of the most important things, or he's the most important thing in our life. And we have to hand our life, everything that we do, all of our thoughts over to him. And don't get stuck in what Judas is doing, taking the world over Jesus. I love that we can spend this time together. And my prayer is that you find today value in Jesus and that you don't sell him out for anything that's going on in this world, but know that what he had to do in a few days was because he valued you and the importance of who you are. So may God continue to bless you this week. May God continue to change your heart and your mind and gear who you know, who you think you are towards who God thinks you are. So thank you for joining us today. Have a great rest of the day.